Okay, so I wanted to do a quicker video, if I can, on the concept of a substring. And so substring is what it sounds like if you break down the word substring. It's exactly what it sounds like. You just gotta stop and think, well, what does that sound like? Well, a part of a string. Say it's a sub or a portion of a string. And so it's pretty common to have information like in, I don't know, string paragraph equals, and then you just have a long text paragraph in your data, right? And so certainly there can be situations where you have these variables with a paragraph of text. And you might not need the whole paragraph, you might just need a piece of it, right? So what you can do when you know how to work with this method called substring is extract the relevant data out of a bigger string. So you have this big string and you want to extract a smaller piece out of it, aka you want a substring. And so it doesn't have to be a large, paragraph of information. More commonly, like you might have someone's name. And let's put this in a full name variable. And if I just wanted to extract my first name, my last name, my middle name, you can do a substring. Now, one thing that you could do, and this is something that we haven't, that I can, this was not on the agenda, is this concept of split. And so we could split my full name into an array of string name pieces equals full name dot split. Now if I console dot write line name pieces, now this is not on the agenda, I'm kind of going on a side tangent, right? But I'm splitting my name into three pieces at the space. So if I write name pieces sub 0, sub 1, and sub 2, you can see that there's a split method that kind of does a substring for me, just breaking my full name down into its pieces as separated by spaces. And so split's pretty useful. Another way of doing that, though, another way of just pulling out my first name is substring. So I'll say string first name equals full name dot substring. And anytime you're looking for how does substring work, there's a couple places to look. But the first place is right in Visual Studio. You could see these arrows, and there's basically two versions of this substring method. Okay, the first version takes an integer as an argument. Keep in mind, when you're calling a method, the data you send into that method is called an argument. And it says the starting index. It says retrieves a substring from this instance. The substring starts at the character position and continues to the end of the string. So if I just want maybe my middle name and my last name, maybe I can start at position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I gotta count at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I just put the number 5 in there, 5 is an argument being sent into the substring method. Okay? Substring will return a string starting at position 5 and going for the rest of my name. Console.log, write line, that's a wrong method. Console.write first name. Now, that's clearly not my first name, but it is what the substring is that I gave it. right? So that's how substring works when you pass it one argument. Substring returns a string starting at that position, position 5. And obviously my first name, I would just say middle and last name. Okay, that way my identifier matches the data. Okay, that's one way to work with substring, is just passing one argument. Now the other way, if you kind of look again, what if I just wanted my middle name? So I'll do string middle name equals full name dot, and now I'm going to use substring. If I type in parentheses and I kind of look, the second version of substring takes in 2 integers. I would say that this method takes in 2 arguments. By the way, looking at this, now you guys can tell the return data type on my method signature. See this first string right here? Everyone look at this for me. This line right here, this word string, that tells me my return data type of this substring method. That's how I know to store this in a string, by looking at this word right here, string. That's the return data type of this method. And I go here and I could see that it takes 2 inputs. So this line right here tells me very important information that I need to know. Piece number 1 is what data goes into the method, what are the inputs, and what is the output, right? So these little tooltips that hover, when I'm clicking these arrows, pay attention to those tooltips. Because as you guys begin to understand methods, as we've been doing the last couple of days, there's methods that you write, but then there's methods built in to C#. These tooltips will help you understand those methods. So again, the exercise here is to extract my middle name. So let's look at this second option here. It says we're going to provide a starting index and a length. So the starting index is going to be very similar to the last number. We said we were going to start at 5. That's position 5 that we start, and we need to count what is the length. How many characters do I want to read? Now my middle name, I want to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to read 7 characters. So if I put in middle name right here, you could see it extracts my middle name. And so, those are the 2 ways that we can work with substring. Now in your lab, right? How is this going to help you with your lab? Well, in your lab, you've got some sort of string that is a credit card number. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe the last 4. In your lab, you have to do something like this. You have to mask all of these numbers right here, but you need to maintain the last 4, right? So in essence, one approach would be, let me store these last 4 variables into, let me store these last 4 numbers into a variable. So how can I store these last 4 numbers into a variable? Well, I'm going to use substring. So let me just do credit card number. Okay, that's the name of my string. I'll make another string called last 4 equals cc number dot substring. Now, my first argument is, where do I start counting? Well, I basically want to start counting right here. So one way is hard coding this. So we could count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I counted 15. Let's see if I got it right. I start 15 and go for 4. And if I counted right, okay, I've now substring my last 4. Now the lab is not very real world. It's because it says, hey, you need to account for credit card numbers that are any length. And that's kind of silly, but it makes you code, it makes the code a little bit more challenging. It's silly because it's not real world, but it does make the code more challenging. So if you can solve it, then you have to think about, okay, what if it's just like this? Well, that's no longer position 15. And so this first number, to make this more dynamic, right now what we have is 2 static numbers, hard-coded. To make this more dynamic, I could do cc number dot length. Okay, so now what's the length of this? I want my starting position to be the length minus 4. And that's a little bit of math as your first argument. So if I do this math, the length minus 4, I'm going to count 5, 10, 14. 14 minus 4 is 10. So this essentially says 10 comma 4. Okay? But it's dynamic because it's using the length. So what is position 10? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is 10. So this is a little bit more dynamic if you use the length minus 4 and then you read the last 4, right? So now it doesn't matter. I get 5, 5, 5 here. I'm reading the last 4. If I make it something like that, it doesn't matter. I'm still reading the last 4. Okay, if I just make it like this, it doesn't matter. It's completely, now I've made that code just a little bit more dynamic to handle credit card numbers of various lengths. Cool. So yesterday, Jacob was saying, hey, I can do the masking part, but I'm having a hard time putting the last 4 back on, right? So essentially what Jacob has is he has, some string that's got hashed values equal to, it'll be something like ba 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 ba, right? And then so what do? You're just going to do string result equals hashed values, hashed values plus last 4. And then you print out result and you get a string of those 2 things that are combined together. Okay, so you have to use substring to read the last 4 and then add that back into the hashed values. All right. So did I keep my promise? 13-minute recording on substring. Any questions on substring? That will help you do the credit card masker, specifically, in this chapter and in priors. All right, I'll stop.